Hello and welcome to MMA Crips Fighting Talk. On today's show, we'll be covering episode 3 of the Ultimate Fighter Season 19, Penn vs Edgar. Okay, joining me on today's show to cover episode 3 will be Mr. Ray Thompson. Welcome to the show, Ray.
Oh, thank you very much. Pleasure to be back on.
And from MMACrypt.com, Mr. Tommy Valls, aka Hired Mick. Welcome to the show, Mick.
Yeah, glad to be back on here, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, guys, let's start out with obviously the beginning of the show where Cathal Pendred was talking to Hector Urbina in the kitchen. They was discussing their fight and being pretty friendly. Both thanked each other. And when Cathal was walking out of the kitchen, he was getting some evil eye. Basically, Hector was like burning a hole in him with his dirty looks. And then it was starting to bother me a little bit because I was like, he's staring at me a bit funny there, you know, why is he staring at him like that? And what really bothered me afterwards is Hector said, I might just shank his ass later, but he didn't say it like a joke, he said it like serious, and you know, everyone started laughing and giggling along with it. I'm not too sure if Cathal knew because nothing got said afterwards, but let's get your reaction on that first, Ray.
I just took it as tongue-in-cheek. I mean, their fight was pretty close. It got pretty heated before their fight. I mean, especially Hector was well fired up before they fought. I think it was just spur of the moment. I personally didn't take it out of context. I don't know. I wonder whether he felt that Cathal was being condescending. I don't think he was, but I wonder if he came across like that, and that's why he said what he did afterwards. But I didn't take it too seriously. I just thought it was a little bit out of frustration more than anything, and I don't think anything was meant by it.
I don't know, you say that, but he was giving him the dirty looks, you know, like he really looked pissed off. Like he was all fine. He was sort of dirty looking Cathal as Cathal was talking to him. I don't know if he just looks at people that way, but to me, I gained a lot of respect for Hector in the fight because it was a tough fight, and he really showed some balls in that fight. He really did. But to do what he did behind his back, I thought it was sort of cowardice in a way, you know, a bit of a chicken move. It made me lose a bit of respect for Hector. I think he's a good fighter, I really do, because he gave Cathal all he could handle and pretty much nearly knocked Cathal out in the first round. So, but before I go on, let's get your thoughts on this, Tommy. What did you make of him mugging Cathal behind his back like that and then saying the things he said?
Well, there's two ways that I can look at it, really. Like, tongue-in-cheek, just joking about. But, like, the way he said it and everything was just either he's really good at, like, delivering a joke, or he seriously meant it. Which, I don't know if he did mean it or not, because he's Mexican, so I don't know about them. But
what's Mexican going to do with it?
You know, just the racist stereotype and stuff like that. But, I don't know, like, I think he meant it as a joke, but then his face was serious, probably because he was a bit butthurt because he did just lose the fight to him.
Well, I mentioned that Cathal probably didn't know about this, so I'm taking it this is the first time he's actually seen it last night when he watched the episode. Assuming he did watch the episode. Now, if you was Cathal sat at home with your cup of tea and your feet up, what would you make of it, Tommy, if you was Cathal Pendred?
I'd be pretty pissed off. I think he has every right to be pissed off. I mean, do you take that as a joke? I mean, he might have meant it as a joke, but for someone to say that, like, I don't know, it depends how he is, I guess, but I don't know, I wouldn't really take that much as a joke, because he looked pretty damn serious.
Ray, if you was Cathal, how would you react?
I'd just laugh it off. I mean, it means absolutely nothing. At the end of the day, all that mattered was their fight, and it was a good fight, and it was a close fight, but Pendred won the fight. That's all that matters, and Pendred's the one that's advanced to the final four at this stage, so just laugh it off.
Okay, let's move on to Renzo Gracie. Obviously, Frankie Edgar brought Renzo Gracie in as a coach. What did you make of that move there, Ray?
I'm a huge Renzo Gracie fan. I remember watching him fighting back in the day in the Pride days. I've actually interviewed Renzo as well. He's a really, really nice, down-to-earth guy. I thought it was a great move. He clearly knows what he's doing. He clearly knows what he's talking about. He's been there. He's done it. And I think guys like that getting to train with someone like Renzo, all you can do is improve. So I thought it was awesome.
Tommy, what did you make of Renzo coming in as a guest coach?
I mean, it was a great learning experience for the fighters. He gave great advice, showed some good techniques and everything like that. It's a pity that the guy who fought didn't use any of the techniques, because that would have helped him significantly. But yeah, I love it when all these guest coaches like always come onto the show, because they go on the show to learn and to win and to better themselves. And by bringing guys like Henzo, who's been there since the beginning, it's just great experience for them.
I was excited because BJ Penn and Henzo didn't get along. I'm not too sure if that's still the case, but there was the famous comment of, "You was in your father's nutsack" or something when I was fighting. It was something along those lines. I'm not too sure, but I was hoping for a bit of drama from, Henzo and BJ, but it never happened. Well, in that episode, it never happened. So I was a little bit gutted. I was sort of rubbing my hands as he walked in. I thought, "Oh yeah, where's BJ? Come on!" But it never happened. For me, though, I think bringing in Henzo Gracie was a smart move, because for me, the Ultimate Fighter competition, as it goes for the team, when you suffer your first loss, that's probably the worst one. Because obviously, when both teams have got a couple of guys into the next round, it's not too bad. But for morale purposes, you lose the first fight, you're not in control. I always feel the first loss, overcoming that, is more important for the team. And bringing in a guy like Henzo Gracie, he's just such a fun, positive person, and just rolling with him for a day, I'm sure it just boosted morale all around the team. Would you agree there, Ray?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just his presence. I mean, even the way he was talking, the way he was interacting with them, I think just his presence would really boost people. And again, for me, there's nothing worse than having someone standing there saying, "Do this, do that," yet they don't do it or they can't do it themselves. But someone like Henzo, if he talks, you listen, because he's been there and he's done it. He's fought the best in the world. He was he was a standout in Pride, of course, and he fought some of the best in Pride. So he's been there and done it. So if he talks, you listen.
Well, let's move on to Todd Monahan. Obviously, we were shown in the preview at the end of episode 2, where we had a little clip of Todd. Basically, it looked like he was sitting everyone down in the front room and preaching to everybody, and it turned out to be the case. That's what he did. But what he actually did as well, he actually woke everybody up. The cheeky fucker. Now, half the guys were asleep. I think 1 or 2 of the guys were asleep. I'm sure I've seen Hector asleep at one point. Now, I don't know if that's because he was talking or because he just woke him up, but what's your thoughts on that there, Tommy? In waking everybody up and preaching to him, it's not something you expect in a fighter house, is it really?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you get a lot of religious fighters, which, fair enough, they're religious. But for him to wake people up when they have to train and everything like that sucks for them. But, they could have walked out any time, I think, and I don't think he would have turned into a big deal. But my problem with the guy was, it wasn't that he was preaching or anything like that. It was just, he was bragging as well. Like, he was bragging about how he had a Jaguar, a boat, and all this money. It's like, dude, come on, you're here to preach. Don't brag about what you've got. Okay, some people don't have that, and if you are a man of God, go help them, the ones that don't have it. He angered me so much when I saw that.
Would you have got up and walked out, Mick, if he was there?
Yeah, because I'm an asshole.
Ray,
give us your thoughts on Todd Monahan preaching to the house.
I'd have been more annoyed with being woken up for that reason than the being stabbed in the back comment, personally. That stabbed in the back, it's, you take it for what it is, it's just talk. But
yeah,
you're obviously all in the house, you're all there for a reason. And again, I'm not against people that are religious. I'm not religious myself, but I'm a believer in each to their own. But there's nothing worse than having somebody cram something down your throat, and that's basically how he was coming off. I agree with the bragging. I mean, it was so OTT. I don't want to know about his boats and his cars and whatever. And I liked what Cathal said in the car. If he's that much of a believer, then he needs to sell all that stuff and give his money to the poor. And it's quite ironic that he makes a statement like that, and then we see him, weeks later, or we've seen him recently, but of course after the show, wading into the sea carrying a baby dolphin, so he's taken out deep enough so the dolphin can swim and support itself, which it just shows that he is a guy that is willing to give back. I thought that was what you touched on. That was quite cool. But yeah, I'm not a religious person. The preaching thing was way OTT for me. The bragging was OTT, and I'd be more annoyed at being woke up.
It is. It's cheek, isn't it? If you want everybody to sit and listen to you, don't do it when everybody's half asleep. Why don't you wait till everyone's had some breakfast or some dinner, maybe afternoon, 2 o'clock? They don't do nothing there apart from train. when everyone gets back from training, they're sort of relaxed, they just want to lay there and chill on the couch and whatnot. That would be the perfect time to do it. Waking everybody up, I'm surprised that they all sat there, to be honest. It was quite accommodating, if you ask me. Yeah, I agree there, Ray. I would have been fairly pissed. Well, let's move on to Cathal Pendred. He was taking some mats up to his bedroom. Like I say, they don't have a lot to do in the house. So using that time wisely, I really like that, to be honest with you. Instead of sitting around all day on the couch, nothing to do morning, he's actually using his initiative and got some mats and having a nice roll around. What did you make of that, Ray?
I thought it was really cool. I thought the class that Dan taught them, the one who was fighting, I thought what he did was brilliant. The way he got them all doing. I mean, when they were sitting in that position, it didn't look much. When you seen people like Pendred and they were struggling in that position, you thought, bloody hell, that must be like a really effective position. I just thought that session that they did there was brilliant. And yeah, they are making the most of their time. It makes sense for them to do. We've never seen anyone do that before in a previous season where they've actually brought mats into the house so they can roll. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was great the way they all bonded and did it together as well.
Well, it takes away the boredom, doesn't it? Well,
absolutely.
You mentioned that exercise, what they was doing. Now, I was really impressed because there was no weights used. It's just using your body weight, like staying in a certain position for like a certain amount of time. The sweat was just dripping off them. That's a really good way to lose the weight and cutting weight sort of thing as well. If you're the one fighting, you got 2 or 3 days just doing that. I also like it because that really strengthens your muscles and your joints and whatnot. That's like horsepower strength. But let's get on to you here, Tommy. What did you make of Cathal taking his mats up to his bedroom?
Yeah, I thought it was like a very intelligent decision for him to do because I don't really understand why no one in TUF history. Well, I'm going to assume no one in TUF history has done it. I don't know, it makes a lot of sense. They're there to fight, train, and win. That's their goal. And to bring mats back to the house and just for that extra edge and training it's just smart. It's intelligent for them to do. And the workout that they did, it looked like it hurt. Like, it was just holding a position, but I don't know, like, I remember I used to do wall sits, and that used to hurt after a while. And even doing that, you can just tell that it was hurting them more because the way they were sweating and just all the workout. And they're professional fighters, so, I mean, it's definitely intelligent.
Do you think Cathal started a trend now with the mats in the bedroom? Are you expecting to see it on future seasons now?
I hope so. I hope they take this as a sign that they have to do work at the house as well as in the gym, because then hopefully they'll get better and we'll have better fights.
Well, the UFC have started putting saunas in. I think it was season 5 or 6 they started putting saunas in the actual house instead of fighters having to go to the gym all the time. Maybe they should kit out like a room just full of mats, like a little, it doesn't have to be nothing special, but for future seasons, maybe like kit out a room, put some mats on a wall and some mats on the floor. That'd be pretty cool for guys to roll. Maybe hang up a couple of bags.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know why they haven't done that, to be honest. Like, some guys want to train at the house as well to get the extra edge and stuff like that, and that would be absolutely perfect for that. Yeah.
Well, they have the big gardens for the cardio, the swimming pool and whatnot. So they've got the cardio up there. They've got the weights there. So a bit of a mat room for some rolling and some bags for, work on the combinations and whatnot. I think it's smart. Okay, well, let's move on to the bout between Todd Monahan and Daniel Spon. Now, Daniel Spon was the favourite, and for good reason, going into the fight. There was quite a lot of hype on Daniel Spon, to be honest, after his first knockout. Dana White mentioned it was up there with the Uriah Hall knockout, but I think there's a lot of arguments against that, to be honest. Fair arguments as well. But let's get down to business. Tommy, give us your thoughts on the first round between Daniel Spon and Todd Monahan, please.
I was expecting more of the stand-up game, but I understand why he took it to the ground to show that he can grapple and to make fighters question what he's going to do during the fights. He took him down pretty easily. I was actually really shocked that he took him down pretty easy. I thought there'd be more defense on that, but so easy to get that takedown. I was so confused by it. But
what did you make of Todd Monahan's guard? Because Daniel Spon got into half guard, into his half guard, well, half mount, shall I say, and Todd Monahan just left his guard open and just let him pass easy. He could have just passed any time he wanted to. I think Daniel thought it was a bit of a trick at first. He's trying to lure him into a false sense of security, but no, he wasn't. He literally just had a... It was no way near UFC caliber guard, from my opinion anyway. What did you make of his guard?
Usually the open guard is if a guy wants to stand up, but then they make the attempt to stand up. He didn't. He just kind of left it open, and yeah, he I don't think he knows how to grapple off his back that well. But then saying that, he did get an armbar in his first fight to get into the house. So I don't really know what happened. Maybe it's like a mental thing with him. But yeah, he looked awful. His grappling looked terrible, and that was a terrible guard for sure.
What did you make of his guard, Ray, early on?
Firstly, for me anyway, with regards to ground game, I think the emphasis is on the guy on the top. Yeah, his guard didn't look that great, but he probably didn't feel a threat. Maybe if he was fighting someone where there was more of a threat, off the top of him, and the guy was putting pressure on him, either with striking or looking to advance, maybe the guard would have been closed. But Spahn wasn't being very aggressive on the top, so maybe that's why the guard, wasn't as good as what it could have been. For me, the way I look at it, especially with MMA more than anything, the person on the top is the one that should be pushing the pace. He's the one that is in control. He should be one that's looking to do damage. The guy on the bottom, you can of course do damage from the bottom. I'm not saying you can't, but in most cases they're trying to control the guy on the top. But when the guy on the top is not very offensive, there's no reason really for you to try and put too much emphasis or energy into controlling that person. You need to obviously try and move and get yourself in a better position. But the guy on the top, which of course was Daniel Spahn, was offering very, very little offense. So therefore, the defence under control on the bottom wasn't really needed. That's what my view on it was.
Well, Todd was working some Kimura attempts from the bottom. It wasn't doing a lot. The Kimura attempt's very tough to finish, from that position. Easy to defend too. And the only thing it was really doing is stifling any offense and ground and pound from Daniel Spahn. But that said, very poor round. I was not impressed with round one at all. I feel like Daniel Spahn just sort of cruised, and there was not enough ground and pound from Daniel Spahn for my liking. Really not enough ground and pound. He knew he had a clear advantage. He could have laid and preyed on him, which he pretty much did. And there was a couple of good transitions. I did like it when Todd Monahan got some ground and pound. He rolled him over and he got a couple of good vicious punches in. Not enough though. Basically, he went back to where he was. But how did you score round one there, Tommy?
I scored easy 10-9 for Daniel Spahn. I thought he was just better overall. The other guy didn't do anything at all. He just kind of lay on his back, did nothing. There was no offense. So I wouldn't give him a 10-8 because he didn't really do enough to get a 10-8. He wasn't throwing punches. He wasn't going submission after submission. It wasn't complete domination, but it was domination. So it's an easy 10-9 for him.
Yeah, I don't think there's much argument there. But I'll ask you anyway, Ray. How did you score the first round?
Yeah, just to pick up on a few of your points as well that you mentioned. You mentioned about the Kimura being hard from the bottom, but for me, when Monahan was looking for the Kimura, he wasn't looking for it to secure the Kimura. He was looking for it to get the sweep, which of course we've seen happen a few times. Yeah, so that was the right thing for him to do. And also, as he's looking for the Kimura, it's giving Daniel Spahn something to think about, so therefore he's not able to be offensive. Go on, sorry.
You say he was using it for the sweep, but from that position, because he was in half mount, because Daniel Spahn was in half mount, I believe that just turning into him, you give up your neck when you do that, but that's the easiest way to get out, to be honest with you. Just turn into him and get onto your knees and, get up. You give up your head, but if you're good at defending the guillotine, you're pretty much safe.
Yeah, that was my take. I thought he was just looking to get a sweep, but because the guard was open, so he could have got the Kimura, and then to get out of it, he'd have had to roll through. So that was why I thought he was looking for it personally. And I think the other reason why the first round was so disappointing was there was so much hype on Spahn going into that fight. I mean, if you listen to BJ Penn, all he kept on talking about was knockout, 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 and so we all believed that that's what was going to happen. And it didn't. It was such a slow round. Spahn, for whatever reason, decided not to use his striking and decided to control the fight rather than win the fight. In a way, you could say in that first round, he fought not to lose rather than to win. But yeah, it was a straightforward 10-9 round. He didn't dominate the round, but he controlled the round. and he didn't do nowhere near enough damage for a 10-8, obviously.
Well, you mentioned about Spawn and BJ Penn, mentioned about knockout, knockout. Now, last week when I covered episode 2, was obviously looking at a preview for this fight, and I was excited because Daniel Spawn, was being hyped up. So what I did, I checked his record, and he mainly has decisions on his record, and it showed in this fight. But speaking of Spawn, now, in between rounds 1 and rounds 2, because it wasn't such a fast-paced fight, I was looking at Spawn sat on his stool, and he was breathing pretty heavy. He looked pretty exhausted. Did any of you guys pick up on that?
I didn't notice that.
I mean, I noticed he was tired, but I just figured it was just because grappling it's very exhausting, and I assumed he wasn't used to it because he was a striker. But I didn't really think too much into it, but he definitely did look tired.
I would understand if there was a good few scrambles, but I think there was about, 2 scrambles where Todd Monahan really made him work. Apart from that, he just basically laid on top of him in half mount and full mount. That's basically all he did for the first round. And, it might be nothing. It might just be nerves, the adrenaline. It might be nothing at all, You can change your cardio in the house. Skill takes a long time. Cardio, he can fix his cardio within 2 weeks in the house, or less. So it's not too much of an issue. He still managed to get the second round done okay, so I suppose it might not be nothing. But speaking of the second round, pretty much the same again, guys. Daniel Spawn just dominating the grappling once again. Didn't have much killer instinct, never looking to finish the fight. And at one point during the fight, Dana White commented that how much of a shit fight, really, and how the ref should basically stand him up. Now, I know you took issue to this too, Ray, so I'll ask you first. What did you make of the second round and Dana White's comments?
It was interesting because one of the things I've got an issue with, I'm not a big fan of the stand-up because I always think that, a fighter's in that position, but I understand that a fighter's got to advance his position. But for me, when he said about the stand-up, Daniel Spawn was in full mount. I don't think there should ever be a stand-up from full mount, and I've seen this happen on a few occasions, more so outside the UFC, and I find that quite frustrating. Because if somebody's in mount, they're in a dominant position, so I don't think they should be allowed to stand up from mount. But because of how inactive Spawn was being, that's why Dana White said it. But I read a comment today about someone. I posted a comment on my Facebook about Dana White was not impressed with last night's fight, and someone replied to my comment saying Dana's an idiot. What's he on about? The guy won. And I thought to myself, well, actually, that's wrong because the guy did win, and you say Dana's an idiot, but we've seen in past seasons, Dana's the one you need to impress. I mean, we've seen seasons where the whole cast gets a fight on the finale because it's been such a great season. And you mentioned Uriah Hall, so TUF 17 is a fine example of that. We've also seen seasons where pretty much none of the whole cast is blanked because it's such a poor season. And again, an example of that is TUF 16, the one which Colton Smith won. That wasn't a great season for the fight. So therefore, most of those guys got turned away. And even in season 18, there was some great female fights. So therefore, the women got a fight on the finale. And they've even gone as far now as to do an all-women cast for TUF 20. And yet you looked at the guys, the only guys that fought on that finale were the 2 guys in the final. And we've now seen Chris Beale come back. But Mike Wooten was, obviously a UK fighter, was never given a chance. But that happened, I think, a lot of the time, because those 2 guys didn't make weight and it screwed up for the whole guys. So to say, for me, if Dana White isn't impressed with your fight, that's a problem. Because if Daniel Spawn don't make the final, there's a very good chance we won't see him now at all because of how bad that fight was.
Well, you make a good point about season 16. I'm not too sure on 18 because I believe mainly a lot of the women were signed because Dana White wants to, bolster the roster a little bit, pack the roster up a little bit, the bantamweight roster, and I feel like the men's one's already pretty packed up, so that might have played a part in the reasoning of it, but I do get what you're saying. Season 16 was very, very poor. There was some very talented fighters on season 16. It was just the boring fights and the decisions. That's all it was, really.
You had Smiling Sam Alvey. He was a good fighter. Bristol Morunde. He come back for a little bit as well. But yeah, the season just didn't deliver. It was just a very slow-paced season.
Well, let's get back onto round 2. Now, pretty much Todd Monahan started off quite well in this one. He got a decent reversal when Daniel Spawn took him down. I thought, oh, he's down again. He just reversed him straight over, flipped him over, and then got back to his feet, which I was impressed with. Then he actually went for a guillotine attempt, but the guillotine attempt was really, really poor, and then it just played out like round 1, basically. let's bring you in here, Tommy. What did you make of round 2 and Dana White's comments also?
Well, I view MMA completely different now than I did last year with what's been happening with the UFC, and I consider MMA more of a sport entertainment rather than just a sport now.
Yeah.
So when Dana's comments about how he's not doing anything in mount and stuff like that, to me it made sense, because if you're in mount, yeah, you have the mount position, you can punch him, try and knock him out, you can go for a submission and stuff like that. But the sport aspect would tell you, just stay there, get the win. The entertainment aspect would be to try and finish the fight, and that's what Dana loves. If you're not entertaining, people won't want to watch you, and Dana won't even be willing to put you on the tough cards. So that's what I think the fighters need to understand. Like, it's not even understand, it's like just to know that he should have done a lot more in that position. Like, I think that it probably should not have been stood up, so that's a good thing. But because of the whole entertainment part, I would have been happy if it did get stood up.
Just to pick up on something Tommy just said there as well. Something worth noting, right? You're better off losing an exciting fight than winning a boring fight. And I'll give you an example. Nordine Taleb, he was on 2 TUF seasons. He lost, obviously, in the house in the TUF Nations, and he lost a fight to get into this house for this season. But both his fights were that good that he was given a shot on the TUF Nations finale card anyway, and has won. So he's in the UFC. That's because he was excited, not because he won, because he was exciting. And people want to see fights like that. No one's looking forward to Dan Spawn's next fight after that fight.
That's very true. Well, this makes BJ Penn's team 2 wins and 0 losses. If you're Frank Edgar now, what do? Do you just put your stock in Diego Lima? Well, I'll ask that next, actually, guys. Diego Lima was picked next to fight Tim Williams. What did you make of that pick there? Let's go with you first, Tommy.
I thought it was. I was shocked, to be honest. I'm picking Lima to win the whole season.
Yeah.
Because I think he is that good, and he's lived up to the hype so far for me. So, like, when I saw that, I was just like, he's going after one of the strongest guys on Team Edgar. I don't know if he's doing that as like a mental advantage. So then, if his guy wins, then the best guy's gone. But I don't know. Like, I think Liam's gonna win. I was really shocked that Penn even went down that route.
Well, it's not over till it's over, but shit. Frank Edgar might as well just pack up his bags and go home if Diego Lima loses. Do you know what I mean? That'll be 3 losses and the top guy out, you know, and then they've still got Cathal Pendred and whatnot, you know. It's not looking good. Would you agree, Ray?
Yeah, I thought it was. I was surprised at the decision. I think you should always put your strongest guys against their weakest guys. But I wouldn't read too much at the moment into being 2-0 down, because the coach that's picking, in theory, should win the first 4 matches and then lose the next 4, because you pick your strongest against their weakest if you're doing it properly. So I wouldn't put too much stock into losing the fights early on, unless it's a repeat of TUF Nations, which was obviously very one-sided.
You know, I don't get BJ's coaching. It's like when he picked the first fight, he didn't do it tactically. He just went. He was like, I get to pick the other fighter. He didn't have a clue. He just doesn't care. He's like, you didn't fight to get into the house, so you can go first, Cathal. It's like, geez, there's no tactical play out from him. He's just sticking in any guy. He doesn't care. And to pick Diego Lima, geez, this guy's crazy. It might pay off in the end, but I'll tell you one thing. BJ Penn is a crazy, crazy coach. He's not like Rashad Evans, you know, all this tactical picking and whatnot. He just, you know, I have faith in my guys. I think he's going to win. There we go. That's the fight I'm making. We'll see how it pans out. Hopefully it wins. I'm not all about the tactical side of things. I just like it when people, you know, go in there and scrap. And if he's got faith in his guys, good on him. If Tim Williams does win, damn. Well, it's not over till it's over. It really isn't. You know, Frank Edgar's team could really come back, you know, because but they're not even halfway through the fights. You know, we're 2 fights in, and that'll be 3. So there's still a long way to go yet. But 3-0 down and your top fighter out, that's not good.
Well, Forrest Griffin had a similar strategy of picking fights where he just randomly chose guys.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll work.
Well, you mentioned that as well. Amir Stoller. Who would have thought he was going to win? CB was the guy. Jesse Taylor was the guy. Amir Stoller won. Do you know what I mean? So we could be writing off guys, you know, who we're not seeing fight, and these guys could be gems. You know, he could have a couple of gems in his team yet, Frankie Edgar. So you never know. That's what I say about the Ultimate Fight. You just never know. It is not over till it's over. Well, let's move on to the preview to episode 4. The main focus of the preview, it looked like Team Edgar was falling apart. Now, we just talked about what happens if they lose a third straight one, but now they're all arguing. They desperately need this win. Would you agree?
Like I said to you just a moment ago, I don't think you can think too much at the moment about being 2-0 down because obviously they're not picking. But now they've got one of their top guys fighting, then I think there's a lot on this fight. They do. If they lose Diego, I nearly said Douglason. If they lose Diego Lima, that'll be a loss, a big loss, because Diego Lima seems like a legit threat for this show.
Well, we've seen the team splitting apart there. There's a couple of, I think there's 2 arguments from 4 different guys. Do you think it's down to these 2 losses, Ray? The pressure's on going into episode 4?
No, I think it's down to the fact they're living in a house with other guys they don't know before they go in. They're away from their family. You know, if any of them are cutting weight, they're probably hungry. Because even though if they're not fighting, they're still keeping their weight as low as possible to make the weight cut as best as possible. As we've seen in previous seasons, if you don't do it and you don't make weight, then you're screwed. So I put it down to that. And there's probably, in the previews, they probably look a lot more serious than what they actually are as well.
Well, would you agree that the pressure's on Tommy? Or do you just think do you think the same as Ray, basically? And, you know, just a house full of guys and, you know, it just happens to be the teammates kicking off with each other.
I think it's absolutely the pressure's on because, I mean, they're on a team. Their team is losing. No one likes to lose, especially fighters. So I think with that pressure, that's on their mind, and I feel like that's gonna bring the tensions to rise a lot sooner than it would. Because I think they would anyway, because of what Ray said, that a bunch of fighters living in a house away from families, etc. But I think it's come out a lot sooner because they are losing, and they hate that.
Well, one of the arguments was with the guy who actually lost, Todd Monahan, so that probably played a part of him. Okay, that's a wrap for today's show. If you have time, be sure to check out MMAequip.com. Ray, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for letting me come back on.
Same to you too, Tommy. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, from MMA Equip's Fighting Talk, thank you for watching.